stabilize those walls, and it's making it a little bit safer for the firefighters to work in there, but they still have to go very slowly. You might be able to see them passing buckets from hand to hand as they take out debris from the store and from the rear where those people are still trapped. We don't know what their condition might be. We do know that they have verbal communication with one of them. They are aware that there is another one under that debris. We're not sure if that person is conscious or not, but this was an active demolition scene. The construction company had the proper permits, and the building did not have a particular history of L&I violations that would indicate it was an accident waiting to happen. So it was just one of those things where it just happened suddenly, and people that were nearby heard this tremendous boom. Many of them came running, started digging themselves, grabbing people and pulling them out many hours before it's over. Hopefully they get to them soon. We know one is conscious. We're not sure of the condition of the other, but they continue their work here. Live at the scene, David Henry, Channel 6 Action News.
And David, they're still concentrating their search there in the thrift shop. I know they're though homes, and is there any search effort in that area as well? Are they trying to go building to building, or are they just primarily staying with the thrift shop?
Yeah, Sarah, judging by the condition of the building that is still standing, I'm going to guess, and it's only a guess at this point, that it was not occupied. It does not look like anybody was living in any of those rooms of the building that's still standing. Obviously, since it was under demolition, it's hard to believe anybody could have been in that building, but it did. That four-story building that went from basically the full half the block from Market Street south, about 1/3 of it still standing, but that is about it. So 4 stories of that building collapsed onto the thrift store, so it's hard to believe that anybody might have been in that building while they were demolishing it, other than maybe a demolition worker who was doing some structural work of some kind. But we do have witnesses who say that the demolition crew was actively knocking down a brick wall adjacent to the thrift store, and that's when this whole thing just came down in one big loud boom. No evidence of any explosion or anything else, just a complete collapse, a catastrophic collapse of that building as the workers continue to search.
And David, I can just imagine the number of people, onlookers, who have gathered. We're talking about the lunchtime crowd now, who probably are just trying to get a look at this devastation. Are they still being kept at a relatively safe distance? I know there was some, the police and fire units wanted it to be quiet here so they could perhaps listen for any survivors who might still be in the debris. Is that still the situation there, as the number of people certainly must be growing here at that area?
Well, Rick, actually, when we first arrived here, there was a rather sizable crowd right around the intersection. Since then, the police and fire rescue personnel have moved them much further back. We can see a crowd a block away at 21st and Market, a large crowd in the street and on the corner down that way. But there's still at least a full block away on either side, and that is one of the points that Mayor Nutter wanted us to mention, the fact that there is a rather large perimeter established around this scene. So anybody in the area, anybody trying to travel through Center City, north, south, east, or west, is well advised to steer well clear of the intersection of 22nd and Market. There's several blocks that have been cordoned off in either direction, and so traffic obviously is at quite a gridlock in the Center City area, at least at the western end of Center City. And so there are crowds gathering. We can see a large crowd on the bridge that carries JFK Boulevard across 22nd Street. They're watching from a distance, but they did want this area cleared for that reason that you mentioned. They had to get some heavy equipment in here, and then they had to keep things pretty quiet while they tried to listen to any voices that might be coming from that pile of debris. And as we mentioned, they heard one person who's still in there, as far as we know, and they do have evidence that there's another person in the vicinity of the person they have heard calling out from inside the debris. We see some movement back there right now. It's just firefighters firefighters continuing, it appears to be moving some more debris away, but we have not yet seen any people being removed from that debris right now. So it's still an active search and rescue situation.
Okay, David, and again, as you mentioned, that area is shut down as this active search continues for believed to be 2 people still trapped in the rubble. Let's go over to Karen Rogers for more on the traffic impact. And SEPTA lines run through that area. Karen, a big impact here for commuters and people trying to get around.
That's right, and we just heard David Henry talking about that large area that they're trying to avoid people getting near, and this is an example of that. We're watching live as we see police pulling up and blocking the ramps from the Vine Street Expressway eastbound to 23rd Street. They don't want people getting near that area. The mayor talked about avoiding that area between 18th Street and the Schuylkill, and also between the Ben Franklin Parkway and Walnut. So let's talk specifically about those closures. Market Street was closed from 20th to 30th. They expanded that between 18th and Schuylkill Avenue, so Market Street shut down, and in that area you want to avoid it altogether. You could stick to JFK Boulevard instead. 21st Street is closed between the Parkway and Walnut. 22nd Street between Walnut and the Parkway. So in this area we're talking about a large region where you have gridlock traffic right now. They avoid you getting here altogether. And how is this impacting with your mass transit as well? So we talked about that L train, and we heard the commissioner say that they just felt minor vibrations as the L train runs through that area, and the trolleys, they continue to assess to see if they're stable. So here's what's detoured right now. The bus routes 7, 9, 21, 31, 42, 44, 48, 124, 125 being detoured completely around this area. So as the evening commute progresses, this is hugely going to impact that region. Trolley routes as well, they're altogether bypassing the 22nd Street station. So we've got trolley routes affected by this: 10, 11, 13, 34, and 36. So this is not only affecting the roads, this is affecting mass transit, the buses, and the trolleys. So we're going to keep on top of this throughout as this develops, and we've been watching them expand that region. So expect that we could even see more changes with this, Rick and Sarah.
All right, Karen, thank you. We suspect rush hour tonight will be impacted because of all of these changes as well, and that large perimeter that the mayor has asked everyone to obey and keep in mind. And of course, we'll have that information on our website at 6abc.com as we continue to look at the scene of the devastation, 22nd and Market Streets. We want to go back to Action News reporter Eva Pilgrim, who was at one of the hospitals, one of the 3 hospitals where the victims have been taken. She's standing by at Hahnemann. At last check, she's standing by at HUP, Hospital University of Pennsylvania. At last check, there were 4 people brought there from the scene. Has that changed since we last talked, Eva?
No, that's the latest number that we have been given by hospital officials. 4 people brought here to the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. 3 of them women brought in by ambulance. 1 man actually walked himself here. The doctors here are still assessing those patients. We talked to a couple of those doctors in the emergency department just a short time ago. Take a listen to what they had to say. They told us, basically, described to us some of the conditions of the patients as they were coming in, and some of the concerns in a situation like this where people are stuck under rubble about the injuries that they are facing. A lot of times those injuries aren't always visible when a person first comes into the emergency department, and so they have to struggle with the tests to find out exactly what's wrong and make sure that they're completely okay. Let's take a listen.
We have seen superficial lacerations, abrasions, contusions, but they're still in the process of being evaluated. So any further injuries we would know shortly.
Certainly there's the potential for internal injuries taken to the chest or the abdomen, and certainly a lot of issues regarding pain and assessing injuries on the extremities.
So that's what they're working on right now. Also, emergency management, the team here from the hospital, still very active with 2 people still being rescued from that rubble. They still are on standby. The hospital here also has a triage system in place. Red meaning critical wristband, and green meaning that they need to be checked out. The people that came to the hospital so far, those 4 people, all are labeled green. Of course, the hospital is still on standby. Rescue continues here in University City. Eva Pilgrim.
And let's get back to that search scene right now. And Action News reporter David Henry. David, what's happening there now?
Well, Sarah, it looks like they've shifted the focus a little bit from one end of the building to the other. Let me give you a shot of what's going on back here. You can now see the front of the thrift store building that is still standing. The firefighters have come around into that part of the building. They are pulling out some planks right now. We've seen them lifting some rather large pieces of timber. Now, just a short while ago, they were at the very rear of the building searching in that area. It appears that they have moved most of the concentration now to the front of the building. That's at the very corner of 22nd and Market. A large army of firefighters in that building. And I might remind you that this is still a very unstable situation. This is part of a building that is now partially collapsed. You can see parts of the ceiling and the roof hanging into that area where the firefighters are working right now. If you look a little bit to the right of the front door, you might be able to see a hydraulic brace that the fire department has been able to erect against the side of the building just to keep that wall a little bit stable. But the rest of the building, there's no telling what kind of stability they're looking at in there. They still have this ever-present, ever-imminent danger of all of that debris coming down on top of their heads while they desperately try to find whoever might be trapped in that building. At last word, it was 2 people. They were concentrating the search effort towards the rear of the building, further south off of Market Street. Now it looks like they've shifted their focus to the front of the building where part of the structure is still standing. You can see the activity back there, but over the last half hour or so since the mayor spoke to us, we have not seen any stretchers coming out of this rubble. We've not seen any of the ambulances leaving, so we can only assume that they're still trying to get a hold of those 2 people who are still trapped in all of that debris. One of them communicating, the other we're not so sure of the condition, but one is at least alert and communicating with the firefighter rescue team. As you can see inside the remaining standing structure of the thrift store, the rear of it collapsed entirely after that building behind it fell over. A 4-story building fell over onto the thrift store, crushing it like a tin can, and just a little bit of it still standing at 22nd and Market, where the firefighters are now concentrating their efforts, and we're just hoping and praying that they're able to come out of there with people well and intact. Live at the scene, David Henry, Channel 6 Action News.
All right, David, thank you very much. And at some point, hopefully, we can show that picture again of what this area looked like before the collapse, and the difference is stark, just as we hopefully can juxtapose what 22nd and Market looked like before this morning at 10:45 and what it looks like now. That building that David Henry was mentioning that collapsed